Welcome, everybody, to the second annual X-Men fandom panel here at San Diego Comic-Con Online. We are so excited to bring to you another panel of X-Men fans that just want to gush about their very favorite mutants. My name is Chandler.
And I'm Chris.
And we're part of X Reads the Podcast. So let's meet our panel.
Hi, I am Chris Riley, and I co-host X Reads the Podcast, where we cover vintage issues of X-Men with celebrities and creators and artists. It's a lot of fun, and we've been doing it for a while now, and we're so happy to be here today to discuss all things X-Men.
I'm Dylan. A lot of people online know me as Warpath Dylan because my favorite X-Man is Warpath, and I'm coming to you from Central Illinois. And I also have my own X-Men podcast and large Facebook group that are both called House of X.
I'm Michelle Waffle. I'm coming to you here with my husband, Justin. We're in Camarillo, California. I work for an interior design firm, and I also do marketing for them. But once a week, I work at a comic book store, Dreamworld Comics in Ventura. And my favorite X-Men is Jean Grey, the original 90s version. That's my favorite.
I'm Justin. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the weekends. My favorite X-Man is, I'd say, Archangel.
Hi, I'm Samantha Ray. I'm from Minneapolis. I'm a fashion designer, and I have a YouTube channel where I discuss what's good or bad about science fiction costuming. And my favorites are Penance, because I love a tragic backstory, little sadness goth girl, and Storm, because the complete opposite is true. I like a badass.
Hi, my name is Morgana Ignas. I'm an actress in Burbank, California. I'm going to see me in shows like Stand Against Evil, Disney Plus's Earth to Ned, and the animated series Hell of a Boss. And my favorite mutants are Domino and Magic.
Howdy, everyone. I'm Rex Ogle. I'm a children's book author, and I also write comic books on the side. And coming to you from Los Angeles, California, which is not so sunny today. But my favorite mutant of all time is Illyana Rasputin, aka Magic.
And I'll round us off. My name is Chandler. I am a co-podcast host with Chris. I also run a PR firm called White Bear PR. My favorite mutant is Kitty Pryde. I'm currently wearing a Art of Lucas shirt. It says Kill Shaw if you've read the current comics. But anyways, Kitty Pryde is my favorite mutant. The question I want to kick off to the panel is, how were you first introduced to the X-Men?
Yeah, there's so many different facets to the X-Men fandom, like the action figures, the cartoon series, the movies, the comic books. So when did you first realize that you loved the X-Men? How were you introduced?
Let's start with Morgana.
So there wasn't anyone around me who was really reading comic books to get me into it. So my introduction to X-Men came when I was about 11 years old with X-Men Evolution. That was actually my first introduction to anything X-Men related. And I remember becoming absolutely obsessed with that show and loving being obsessed with Rogue and Scarlet Witch and a bunch of those characters from it, and kind of being introduced to mutant lore and how that whole world works. And I basically, after getting into that show, begged my dad to take me to Golden Apple Comics in Northridge, their Valley location, and just telling him, I need more X-Men stuff. One episode a week of this show was not enough. And then having my world greatly expand, realizing that the show heavily diverted from the comics, and characters were all different here, and getting into that side of things. So it was that animated series that kind of set it off. And ever since then, I think I've been picking up comics every week for 17 years now.
I love it. I love it. Let's hear from Rex.
So I actually discovered comic books when there was nothing but comic books. There was not that many TV shows. I mean, I think I saw Spider-Man and Friends, which had Iceman, and that was the closest thing to X-Men that I had. But it was my friend William in 6th grade who introduced me to X-Men comic books. He was a new friend, and he sat me down and he was like, you have to read comic books. And I was like, I don't know, aren't comic books for dorks? And he was like, you just have to give it a chance. And as soon as I read it, I was hooked and I was addicted, and I started collecting. I started going to local comic book stores and bookstores that had like quarter bins filled with comic books. And I just started reading back issues of X-Men and New Mutants, and that was it for me.
I love it. Michelle and Justin, give us your origin story.
Well, my parents bought comics for my brothers. It was like the comics and the cards. Like that was kind of popular in like 94-ish. And I think the X-Men animated series was also airing or starting to air around the same time. So since my brothers were into it, I was into it. We would get up early on Saturday mornings and watch the X-Men animated series together. So it was kind of like a family thing for us.
Yeah, well, for me, it started as far back as I can remember. I think I was in first grade, kind of dating myself here, but you guys remember the Secret Wars figurines?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my first ever was the Wolverine one, and I love that toy so much. I played with it until like all the paint was wore off. And then time passed, and same thing. I watched Spider-Man and his friends. And then there was one local comic book shop in my hometown that I used to walk by every day going to school. And then one day I just walked in, and Spider-Man was originally what drew me in. But then as I started reading more comics, the X-Men really caught my eye, and I started reading the back issues of X-Men. From there on, it just kept going.
Amazing. So Michelle, you mentioned, of course, X-Men, the animated series. That's a big, series that a lot of us watched and love, and I think introduced a lot of people to the X-Men.
That's how I was introduced to the X-Men, to the animated series.
So yeah, we have another guest joining us. I'm going to admit him into the panel, and we will have a little chat. So we are really excited to present George Buza from X-Men the Animated Series. He is the voice of Beast.
Yes, Beast.
Oh my gosh. And garters.
Come on in, George. We are so excited to see you.
It's exciting to be seen.
Yes. Everybody give a round of applause for George.
Yay.
Surprise, everybody.
Yeah.
Our panelists, they had no idea that we were bringing in special guests, but here's our first one, George Buza.
George, so obviously you voiced Beast in X-Men the Animated Series, and you and I got to meet when I moderated this panel on the passing of Norm Spencer, and you gave an amazing story about growing up and relating to the X-Men and relating to Beast in particular. I would love for you to tell this panelist this story.
I grew up in the 1950s, the son of immigrant parents from Eastern Europe after World War II. And I was a big kid, so I took a lot of ribbing, a lot of hassles, took a lot of bullying in school. And as a big guy, I also learned that if you defend yourself, you're the one that's going to be blamed for whatever goes down. So I tried to avoid any kind of violence at all costs. And most of the time it worked out very well. Usually your size would intimidate people enough that they'd leave you alone. And then in 1962 or 61, I remember going to my newsstand to pick up the latest Superman comic book and seeing a brand new issue of this thing called X-Men. And I really identified a lot with the mutants, the fact that they were persecuted. And then years and years later, when I became a professional actor and got this call to go and audition for this thing called Project X. And I'm reading the dialogue and I'm looking at the character names. And I said, what a silly thing to call this Project X. This is X-Men. Because they were keeping it a very big secret from everybody, because it was hush hush that we were going to do this series on the X-Men. And all the people that didn't read comic books had no idea whatsoever what this was all about. Me, I was excited like a little kid again. That's something that I was familiar with from my youth. As an adult and as a professional, I was going to be able to participate in. So it was very exciting for me to get cast as Beast. And that's basically the story.
I love it. I love it. Does anybody have any questions for George about his experience on the show or anything you want to ask him?
I just wanted to say what an absolute pleasure it was when Disney Plus was launched to be able to have the entire series available to revisit. I know so many of us probably like that's the first thing we did when we got our subscription. We jumped immediately to the original X-Men animated series and like just spend weeks binge watching the whole thing again. It was such a joy to be able to revisit and hear all of your work again.
For us, it was very exciting to be viable again. The fact that after 25 years, we were back on the air.
George, when you came into the Zoom, you said the Stars and Garters, but we were all talking. Can you say it again?
All my stars and garters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They burdened Beast with a lot of obscure quotes and a lot of familiar quotes. And occasionally they would even sneak in things that were not quotes, stuff that they had made up. So every time that they were in some sort of a situation, they would come up with a quote from a poet or a verse from somewhere that the Beast would utter before delivering vengeance.
Right. Michelle, what was your question?
I was going to ask George, what was your favorite Beast quote? Or do you remember one that you liked the best?
Yes, I do have a favorite, and this is the one where he's being let in by, I can't remember the name of this lady, and she gives him some sort of orders and calls him Blue Boy. And he gets very indignant. He says, "My name is Mr. McCoy, madam, not Blue Boy." That's my favorite quote.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you get any of your action figures?
I have one, and I bought one for my grandson. And in front of my eyes, much to my dismay, he grabs the box and goes, "Ooh, rip!" And his mother is freaking out, going, "That could have been worth a lot of money someday." I said, "Don't worry about it," because he was about 5 or 6 7 at the time. And I said, "What 7-year-old boy can you give a box with a toy in it and say, 'Don't open it'?" You know, it's I had fully expected it to be, because I came home with it from one of the Comic-Cons. I bought it off of a dealer there. And I knew it was going to be ripped to shreds. So I still got the box in my closet in case we ever have to put it back.
Children aren't really into the action figures for the investment quality of them.
Right.
I bought it for him as a toy. This is what your grandpa did. You know?
Yes. Awesome. Well, George, thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate it. Everybody say goodbye to George.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh my God, that was so awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was cool.
That was fun.
I have chills. I just love the X-Men animated series so much. I know all of you do too.
Yeah. And he had such a soothing, gentle voice, you know.
Yes.
That whole gentle giant approach. And I love his story about relating to the character, being bullied growing up and then loving the X-Men and getting to play an X-Men. So
that was a great surprise.
Well, let's just continue on into the intricacies of our personal fandoms. I want to know, what are some of your favorite artists from the X-Men universe? Who stands out to you?
Oh, I'll jump in right away and say Bill Sienkiewicz. His run on New Mutants was, it was fine art. To me, it's like I'd seen comic book art before, but I'd never seen something quite as astounding as what he created. And it was just so beautiful and so different. And I couldn't get enough of it.
Well, awesome that you mentioned Bill Sienkiewicz, because guess who's going to be joining us right now?
Wait, no way.
This was not planted at all. This is an amazing opportunity that happened. So we are so excited to have Bill Sienkiewicz joining us here on the panel. Say hi to everybody, Bill.
Hey, how are you? Hey, everybody.
Hey, Bill. Turn on your camera so we can all say hi. And
you can see the. Okay, let me just see what I can do here with the camera. I don't know. I'm forewarned is forearmed. You may not like what you see, so I'm just letting you know. Oh my God!
There he is,
everybody.
Hello, everybody.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you all as well.
Yeah, well, so Rex was just saying how you are his favorite X-Men artist. So Rex, why don't you, if you want to say
Really?
hi to Bill or anything to say, or a question for him.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, how are you?
I'm a little starstruck right now because I think it's funny. Like I used to work.
Yeah, be in all of my glory. Yes, it's like as you should be. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. It's like, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, your art is incredible. It's just it's amazing to see. Like, sorry, I'm starstruck. Someone else talk.
Bill,
you were doing great. You were doing...
Bill, I want to say that I agree with Rex. I think your art is some of my most favorite art for the same reasons, that it's like a masterpiece of art that you would see in a museum that's not necessarily comic book art.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Whenever I think of you, I think of a Wolfsbane image that you did for trading cards, I think in like 1994, but it's just this really cool Wolfsbane image, and I don't even necessarily like
is it the one where she's sort of 3/4 from behind turning?
Yes, she's
I actually remember doing that piece, and I remember being very happy with the way it turned out. So yeah, there's certain ones that stick with you, as I'm sure you know. It's often the ones that you don't want to stick with you.
Yeah, like I'm saying, I don't necessarily like Wolfsbane, but that image is beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I mean, it's so great to see what you guys are doing, and what everybody's doing in terms of comics and pushing the medium and everything else. Because certainly, I know my love for the medium is as it must be at least equal to yours, and everybody on the video here. So for me, it's really exciting to see what new stuff comes out, and just pushing it all forward, because it's a big tent. Comics are a big tent.
Any other comments from the panel? Any other questions that you guys want to? Yeah,
I just wanted to say when Bill popped up, I need to grab this off my wall, which is one of my favorite things hanging on there. So I'm dressed as Phoenix now, but I've done magic a few times too. And my favorite thing I have is the Soul Sword that I had Bill sign.
Oh, that's fantastic! That's fantastic.
So,
love it.
It was so rad, and now it's like hanging like an armory on my wall. Your signature looks perfect because it almost looks like some ancient rune going down the blade of the sword. So
that's it's fun to have a signature like that. It only took long, how many years to kind of come up with a signature that looks like something that a doctor would write for a prescription for Xanax, So I'm not implying that anybody needs any.
Right.
But
definitely not within this fandom at all.
Yeah. Awesome.
I like that's a great costume, by the way. I mean, you're doing, that's great. I love the glow of the, the Phoenix there.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I was trying to decide between what I was going to wear today, and this definitely reflected the text on camera. So this was
there you go.
Today. But yeah, I also just want to say, like, I'm not a big collector of single issues usually, except for your run of New Mutants, just for the covers. Like, I will go back and collect all of that original run of New Mutants just because of all like the gorgeous covers you created for each one, because each one just feels like its own individual collectible art piece.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. That's well, I mean, the New Mutants, it's it's fun that it's I mean, I know like I may be in the mid minority. I don't know. It's like I do think that there's a majority, but I actually really liked the film. I thought it was a really wonderful film. I don't know if you've all seen it or not.
Amazing. Well, Bill, thank you so much for stopping by. We love your work.
Matt, my pleasure.
And
my pleasure.
Everybody say goodbye to Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Bye. Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a great,
absolutely,
great one. See you all in the real world sometime soon, I hope. Take care now.
Oh my gosh, I love Bill so much. That was such a treat.
Yes, guys, this is so much fun, and we got to keep the hits. They keep on coming because we have our next person coming for you.
Oh my gosh!
Yes. Are you ready to have the amazing,
the wonderful
Leah Williams?
Come on in, Leah Williams.
We are adding Leah Williams to the panel right now. So Leah Williams, writer of X Factor, currently in the Hox Pox Dawn of X. She's an incredible writer overall. Leah, hi.
Hi.
Oh, it's so great to have you. Thank you
Thanks
so much for joining us. Everyone's speechless. Dylan was covering his mouth. He was so excited.
Oh, Dylan, hi. I didn't even notice you. Yeah.
Hi. Leah, I think I tagged you in like a billion posts online. I made a podcast episode thanking you so much for X Factor. And this is really awesome that you're a part of this because I loved your run of X Factor.
You're gonna make me cry almost immediately. I haven't been able to bring myself to listen to that podcast yet because I know I'm gonna be a wreck once I do. So David and I are kind of like saving it for when we're ready, you know. We just sent off the last issue. We went like balls to the wall. He and I ended up being co-writers on it, and it's going to be good. And we just sent off our very last X Factor data pages yesterday. So this is a nice little send off for me.
Oh, I'm a big fan of it myself. I'm so happy that you're on this panel, but you know, we're just the hosts. I want to let the panelists have anything they want to say. Do you guys have anything that you want to ask or talk to Lee about?
I mean, I'm just personally going to step up and say the what if Magic became the Sorcerer Supreme is, I mean, it's so good. It's so good. It made me so happy because it's like one of those things where Bendis kind of broached the topic of her meeting Doctor Strange. And I was like, oh, she should be the Sorcerer Supreme. So to have you write that, it was such a good issue.
Thank you. That was another project that like felt special at the time while I was working on it, because you know, you guys are probably all creatives and working on stuff too. You can feel when something clicks in a way that is really uncommon, and What If Magic was definitely one of those projects for me.
I was so upset that it was a what if, because I so badly wanted more of like that magic to continue on in the storyline. The idea that she had like a nurturing, decent teacher to take her through the ropes, and I feel like that was magic at her fullest capabilities, like without so much of the trauma and actually dealing with her issues and managing to harness her power.
Yeah, I feel you there. I agree. I want like a million more issues set in that same world. So it actually ended up being so popular that Marvel let me set Doc Strange the End in the same world. So that's like the conclusion of What If Magic, basically. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in between, like, you know, maybe 15, 17 years pass in between the issues. So she's like grown up and has gone through her training with Doc Strange. But it's the same magic and the same world, which was a really, really cool opportunity for me. Oh, and same artistic team. Because we all clicked so much the first time. We were like, yeah, let's do one more. Let's go.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, I read both. I love that. The End and the What If Magic. I completely loved it. And I can't wait for your upcoming Trial Magneto. Cannot wait for the Jesse Drake and Black Cat that we just saw announced. This is all so exciting to have you on this panel.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here.
Any last kind of comments from the panel? Any questions for Leah before we bid her adieu?
Yeah, I love that you are like one of those writers that throws in all the tiny things from the past, like Rachel's chrono skimming and just small details like that. Because I know a lot of other writers like Hickman get bonus points from fans for going and picking up those tiny little things. So I love that you are like that too. And I try to say that every time somebody praises Hickman, I'm like, well, Leah does it as well. So let's not forget that.
I'm also, Hickman is like, he's a joy to work with because he trusts his writers so much. So a lot of the tiny things that you see referenced through his work came because, you know, he asks the brain trust, the X writers room, like, what would be good here, you know, a meaningful part of their history. And like, he knows all of this stuff too, but he's asking for our opinions and our thoughts on it. So there's one moment, I think it's it's the first time we see the X-Men getting resurrected, and there's this moment between Storm and Jean Grey where they reference like an old school moment that they had way back in the day. And that was actually my suggestion. And I was so tickled that he went with it. It made me feel like, yes, okay, I am of value to Jonathan Hickman. That's pretty cool.
Amazing.
I
Yes.
got one more question.
Go ahead.
Has there been any discussion at all about including Gwenpool more in Krakoa?
Oh, lots. Yeah. And there have been attempts. Yeah. She is in the MODOK miniseries right now and kind of featured over there. So we haven't been able to do as much as we would like with her. But my first pitch for my Hellfire Gala issue, I had Gwenpool there, and now with the way that everything, this is before I knew the series was ending. So now everything that I had wanted her to say to the audience, and all of these like feelings and things that I think are important for readers to know, like how much we cherish you guys, that's all my data page now. Like I just wrote a letter straight up from me. So the heart is in there, if not the Gwenpool, because unfortunately she's busy girl.
Yeah. Well, everybody, please thank Leah for joining us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course, and thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course, it's such a pleasure, and we'll hopefully see you at a con soon.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye, Leah. Oh my gosh, Leah is amazing.
Chandler,
I love her writing. I'm actually probably after this going to go do a massive marathon speed read through all of those issues that I love of hers.
And as you know, this panel is not what you guys expected. You thought you were just here to talk about X-Men and have fun, but we have one last guest that we are very excited to bring to you now. So let's welcome Shawn Ashmore, Iceman from the X-Men films.
Come on in, Shawn. Welcome to the party.
Yeah, we are so excited to have Shawn here. This is really such a pleasure to have Iceman from what, in my opinion, the best film.
And
Victoria.
Come on in, Shawn. Welcome to the party.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
So yeah, this is so great. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, as we probably told you and now have told the panel, they did not expect you to be here. This is a big surprise for everybody. So I'm going to kick us off by just asking you about Iceman. I mean, that it's an amazing character. You got to really evolve because you were in so many films across so many years. So what was your biggest takeaway of playing that character? What did you love so much about it?
You know, well, I was a Marvel fan growing up, and I read a lot of X-Men prior to being cast. So obviously when the role came around, I was like, yes, absolutely. Like just the opportunity to audition was exciting. But, you know, I think the coolest thing for me was getting to spend so much time with the character. You know, so when we first meet Bobby, you know, doesn't quite have a grasp on his powers. He's like young, meets Rogue, you have this thing. And throughout the films, as, you know, Bobby became a bigger member of the team and really became like an official X-Men, like that was exciting. And when in Days of Futures Past, I finally got to do the ice slide, I was like, yes, finally, like now we've hit that level. So there was a long buildup to get to that point where we meet Iceman the way that we do in the comics. But for me, it was worth it, you know, just to have that progression and to see him sort of grow as a character throughout the films was really cool. But believe me, when I read Days of Futures Past for the first time and I was like the ice slide in the opening sequence, I was like, yes. Then I got killed by Sentinel and I was like, oh man, but it was worth it.
It was worth it for me too.
So I want to know if any of the panelists want to jump in. Do you have any questions, panelists?
I do. Was this your first choice of character that you would have wanted to be, or was there someone else you would have played?
Well, I think, again, I was just excited to get the opportunity to be a part of it. So I wasn't thinking like, oh man, I wish I could audition for this part. But growing up, one of my favorite X-Men or Marvel characters was Nightcrawler for sure. So, you know, I'm actually not saying that I would have rather Nightcrawler over Iceman, but growing up, that certainly was like one of my favorite characters. I loved teleportation. I loved his story. I loved his background. I loved all of that. So I think that was one of my favorite X-Men characters. So if I ever got a chance to do it again, that might have been a fun character to play. But yeah, I think maybe if I had a chance, that's the other X-Men that I would have liked to play.
Well, you were great as Iceman, so.
Thank you. I loved it. It felt like the right fit. You know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of casting is sometimes you wish you could play another role or like that would be ideal. But, you know, I think a big portion of casting is just being the right fit for the role. And again, the Bobby that we started, you know, playing in the first X-Men was obviously much different than the Bobby from the comic books as well. So it's like if they had have been gone in another direction with, you know, maybe the more kind of like sarcastic, edgy Iceman that we've sort of met in the book sometimes, like it might have been another actor, but for the way that they wanted to grow this character and you know, introduce him to the film version, I think I just was the right fit, and that's sometimes all it takes.
Awesome. Michelle and Justin, we haven't heard from you guys in a while. You're on a Zoom with Shawn Ashmore.
I know.
I'm just awestruck.
I know. I used to watch In a Heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were my favorite.
Yay. It's, you know, what's kind of cool is like, and it seems so random, but like when I bump into people or when people sort of recognize me from stuff, like I would say probably half the time it is X-Men. I mean, that's kind of the biggest role, the biggest franchise, obviously, that I've been a part of. But there are people still from the Disney days. It's like, oh, I recognize you in a Heartbeat, or Cadet Kelly, or Animorphs, like, and the Animorphs.
I forgot about Animorphs.
Yeah, like I get so much of that, and it's such a strange thing because for me, it was so long ago, and I grew up in Canada, and that's where we shot the show. And it was a Nickelodeon show, and it didn't really air in Canada till much later. So nobody knew that show, but I would come down to the States for auditions or whatever, and everybody would be like, oh my God, Animorphs. And I was like, oh yeah, people actually saw that show. So it's kind of fun.
I do have a question for you. In the movies, do you ship Iceman with Rogue or Kitty?
Great question. That's such a great question. You know, I think that my gut always goes with Rogue because that's where the relationship started. So I didn't necessarily love the moment in the third film where, and I can't remember, honestly, we shot so many different versions of scenes in X-Men 3. So there was like a scene where I'm ice skating on the pond with Kitty after Professor X is killed. Well, killed, you know. And we shot two different versions of the scene. There's the version where we're just skating and we're like kind of holding hands and Rogue sees it. And then there's one where we actually kiss and it's like, oh, that was a mistake. So I can't actually remember which one made the final film because we did shoot both versions of that scene. But I always felt like that was kind of a mistake and a betrayal to the relationship that we'd set up with Rogue. And I was like, you know, it is what it is. It's not like that relationship went any further, but there was that moment I was kind of like, it's a bummer. That being said, I really, really liked what they did in Days of Futures Past. Like if you know what I mean? Like, and I felt like at that point, enough time had passed where I liked the idea that Bobby and Kitty were together and it felt like it was right. And there was all this history that we didn't know about, but when you meet them, they clearly have this connection and this relationship. So I really liked that aspect in that film. So, you know, the long answer is I think they both are kind of cool, but I always go back to the Rogue relationship. I also think that's really interesting too, because they can't touch. It's like this real tension. And so I think their connection was very real because obviously, especially as teenagers, like your instinct is like, okay, we're going to make out, we're going to do this. If you can't do that, then it really is like a patient, emotional connection. So I feel like that's what I liked about their relationship. and the sexual tension was kind of fun, you know, like you can't have that thing that obviously these two people wanted together. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Awesome. Anybody else from the panel? Any last minute questions?
Me.
Yes, Dylan.
I am one of those people that loved you as Jake on Animorphs,
Hey,
but my question is, if the opportunity came for the Marvel Cinematic version of X-Men, would you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, in a second. I mean, I have such a connection to this character because I started playing the character when I was 18, maybe 19. I can't really remember. And like I'm 41 now. And the last time I did it was a couple years ago. But basically it was like 18 years that I played this character. And what a crazy gift to like every 5 years or maybe 4 years at a certain point, get back, like as I matured and aged, I got to come back and play that character again. And then, so that was really unique and cool. And I've never had an opportunity like that with anything else. So obviously it'd be fun to play the character again. And I would do it in a second. But also, I'm just not sure if that's in the cards. Like I've come to terms that like Days of Futures Past was probably the last film that I'll be a part of. But if tomorrow Marvel called up and they were like, hey, we're going to do a reboot or we're going to do a movie and we'd like you to play Iceman again, I'd say yes in a second. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but I would definitely do it. I love the character. I love the world. I love, I just love being a part of that. And I have such great memories over the years too, like working with all these same actors and filmmakers over and over and over again, not just making the films, but because they were such big films, you would travel the world and like go to premieres and hang out and just, you know, spend a ton of time with the same people every few years. And that was kind of like a real gift for me and just a really, really fun time.
Well, I'm all for it. I'm all for the return of Shawn Ashmore as Iceman. Anything else from the panel? Just want to make sure that you guys get your moment. Yes, Morgana?
Yeah, so one of the things about the X-Men films is that they were kind of the films that started taking comic book movies in a more serious direction.
Yeah.
Before that, it was almost like comic book films were almost specifically meant as like children's films, and was wondering how that felt in like entering into this franchise and realizing that this is going to be a lot different than what we've seen Marvel or really any other comic book company do with a movie that's meant to be a more intense storyline, a more intense energy, and kind of seeing how comic books films developed since then.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was exciting. And as soon as I read the script, I knew that that's what they were trying to do. But it also made sense. I was like, this is what the books actually represent. Like if you're into the comics and stuff like this, it felt more real or more true to the source material. And again, there were choices that were made that at the time comic book fans were upset about. Like, okay, the X-Men are going to wear like black leather uniform. Like we're not going to see Wolverine in the spandex. We're not going to see, you know, Cyclops in the blue and gold. You know what I mean? Like there were choices that people were like, wait a minute, this isn't true to what it is. But I think that the tone and the energy were more real. And, you know, fast forward 15 years or 20 years. And now, you know, Captain America is wearing essentially the same costume, the same colors, the same flair, as well as other characters. So I think there had to be sort of like, in that translation from comic to film, especially like you were saying, taking more seriously, there had to be a few changes that were made to then come around to be like, oh yeah, people will take that costume seriously. It's about the tone, it's about the character, it's about the energy that needs to feel serious. And again, I think casting, you know, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in those roles were the real grounding. You know, you have these two incredibly talented theater actors that took these roles as seriously as they would, you know, something that they're doing on stage, some Shakespeare or whatever performance they were doing. And I felt like they brought that energy to it. And I think that's what Brian was looking for when he decided to make these films. And so I think that was a huge part of grounding these films and making them, you know, I think more what true comic book fans wanted to see. So I felt that immediately. I was like, oh, this is like a serious movie. And it's still fun. You know, you still get these abilities, these powers, but in that first film, especially too, the relationship between like Wolverine and Rogue, like those scenes on the train, they were so grounded, so real, so emotional. And I remember, I think that was one of the first scenes that I saw was the scene where on the train, I think, between Hugh and Anna, and I was like, oh, this is like a legitimate dramatic scene. This is not a comic book film, or it's not goofy. It's not just going for the fun. It's like, it's really emotionally grounded and powerful, and I think that's kind of set the stage.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us here on the panel. It was so amazing to have you drop in and surprise everybody. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Everybody give a round of applause for Shawn Ashmore.
See you later.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Wow.
That was so
Did
cool.
you, I cannot believe, your faces, you were all surprised, weren't you? Did you have any idea that you were going to be surprised by all of these X-Men universe celebrities and
Oh, that is awesome.
creators?
No,
and artists?
didn't.
This was a great treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shawn Ashmore is up on the level of like Hugh Jackman as representing the X-Men. Like, I will forever see him as Iceman, just like people forever see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Absolutely.
Well, we're so glad that we could put together this panel for you guys. Sorry you didn't get a chance to talk about your love of X-Men so much, but your interactions and your surprised faces said more words than any. So we're going to wrap up the panel, and why don't we go in the same order that we did as we introduced ourselves, but tell us about who is the favorite person that you saw today, and give us like your social media handles. How can people find you if they want to interact?
Yeah, let's start out with Dylan.
Well, first of all, I hate you guys for having Leah on and having me cry in front of however many people are going to watch this. But Leah was my favorite guest. Just, yeah. But I like Shawn Ashmore too, so it's hard to choose. Anyway, if people want to find me online, I do have, like I said, my own X-Men podcast that's called House of X Podcast. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at warpath_Dylan.
I think for me, it was definitely going to be Shawn Ashmore because, oh my gosh, like, I had the biggest crush on him in a heartbeat. And then I forgot he did Animorphs too. And I liked the first X-Men film. Like, it was good. They took some liberties, but overall, I think it really got people into the X-Men universe. If not for the animated series, like, I think this was like the next step, especially since like we grew up with the animated series. And then as we got older, they came out with the movies. It was fun to see it go from animation to live action. And I'm on Instagram, Michelle Waffalo. Or you can just search Michelle Waffle. I think I'm the only one on there.
And I would have to probably say Shawn Ashmore too. I'd say Days of Future Past by far was my favorite movie. That he finally got to show how much of a badass Iceman really is in that movie. And I'm on Instagram, but I don't post too much. It's JT_Otero.
Nice. Sam?
All right. I liked all of them, honestly. Like, seeing the different parts of the creation of it and how excited they all like are about the thing they made was really sweet and inspiring. So I liked them all. I thought they were great. Shawn was really fun because he just went in depth a little bit more, and I thought that was great. You can find me Samantha Ray, REI official on Instagram, and the Samantha Ray on Twitter. And then on YouTube, it's Cinema Attire, all one word.
Morgana?
I just have to say, not only did you do an amazing job bringing in such great guests, but such a variety of guests from different aspects of the X-Men fandom. So it was so great to hear from everybody on their like individual contributions to it, from like George's iconic voice and Bill talking about his artwork and style. I think Leia is one of the best X-Men writers in years. My heart is broken that X Factor is ending in the next issue, because that could have gone on for years and years with everything that I would have liked to have seen her go over. It was just such a joy to hear from everybody and get everyone's perspective on how they contributed to this amazing storyline.
And where can we find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Ignisgram or IgnisQuote on Twitter, and watch me on Earth to Ned and Help a Boss.
Awesome. And Rex?
I mean, that was a wild ride. This is not what I expected at all. And I think it's hilarious that I got completely tongue-tied when Bill Sekovich came on, just because I remember my first San Diego Comic-Con. I approached his table to talk to him, and I couldn't get the words out. So I mean, the same thing happened again here, but it was still very cool to like meet him online. So yeah, I mean, all of the panelists were amazing, and so were the guests.
And where can we find you online?
You can find me at Third Rex on Instagram.
Awesome.
What about you?
Oh my gosh, I loved hearing from George from X-Men the Animated Series. His role as the Beast was so iconic, and it touched so many lives. And that's how I was introduced to the fandom. So, you know, just hearing anybody from X-Men the Animated Series sends my nostalgic heart into overload.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what about online? Where can people find you?
Where can people find me?
Yeah.
Well, they can find us actually at X Reads Podcast on all social media platforms. That's the letter X, READS podcast.
Correct. Yeah, I loved everybody. I am a huge Leah Williams fan. So that was like a big win, you know, putting this panel together, asking these people, seeing if they'd be willing to dedicate some time on their Sunday to join us on Zoom. And when I got that yes, I just was like, so excited. So but I love all of them. I thought they were all fantastic.
Yes, everybody was wonderful.
Yes. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you had a good time and had a nice surprise.
Thanks for being tricky boys.
I know, this was so fun.
Yeah, and if you're watching this out here in the world, make sure to go and watch the X-Men, the cartoon version, the anime version, the movies, the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to take in from the X-Men fandom.